Okay.
Like a little less excitement over there.
All right, folks, just be mindful. We are live. We're checking on the stream now.
We are in
Nice.
gallery mode, just so you know, we're in gallery mode.
I'll be quiet, Raphael. I'm sorry.
Okay, is the live stream good, Sergeants?
We're in gallery mode, so we're just waiting to see when it switches over.
Thank you.
All right, we're
Good. Are we good?
yes, we're good now.
Thank you. Can we begin the recordings, please?
Recording to PC on the way.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the New York City Council remote hearing on the Subcommittee on Landmarks, Public Siting, and Dispositions. For verification purposes, at this time, will all panelists please turn on your videos. I repeat, please turn on your videos. Thank you. To minimize disruption, please place all electronic devices to vibrate or silent mode. Thank you. If you wish to submit testimony, you may do so at landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. I repeat, landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you for your kind cooperation. Chair Lewis, we're ready to begin.
Good morning. I'm Councilmember Farah Lewis, Chair of the Committee on Landmarks, Public Sightings, and Dispositions. I am joined today by my colleagues, Councilmembers De La Rosa, Ung, Ressler, Richardson, Jordan, Marte, and Vernikoff. Before we begin, I recognize the Subcommittee Council to explain today's procedures.
Chair Lewis, we have also been joined by Councilmember Feliz, and we will recognize everyone who has not been recognized after I give these instructions. I am Jeffrey Campagna, counsel to the subcommittee. Members of the public who wish to testify were asked to register for today's hearing. If you registered to testify and are not yet signed into Zoom, please sign in now and remain signed in until after you have testified. If you wish to testify and have not registered, please go to www.council.nyc.gov/landuse to sign up now. If you are not planning to testify on today's items, please watch the hearing on the New York City Council website. All people testifying before the subcommittee will be on mute until they are recognized to testify. Please confirm that your mic is unmuted before you begin speaking. Public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per witness. 2 minutes per witness. If you have testimony that you would like the subcommittee to consider in addition to or in lieu of appearing before the subcommittee, or if you require an accessible version of a presentation given at today's meeting, please email landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number or project name in the subject line of the email. During the hearing, council members who would like to ask questions should use the Zoom raise hand function. The raise hand button should appear at the bottom of the participant panel. I will announce council members who have questions in the order that they raise their hands. Witnesses are reminded to remain in the meeting until they are excused by the chair. Lastly, there may be extended pauses if we encounter technical problems. We ask that you please be patient as we work through these issues. Chair Lewis will now continue with today's agenda.
Thank you, and we've also been joined by Councilmember Nurse. Today, we will begin with a public hearing and vote on pre-considered LU 46 for the Broadway Triangle Bartlett Crossing project. After we vote, we will have 2 more public hearings on pre-considered LU 45 for the 34 Morningside ANCP cluster and LU 52 for the Sutter Place NCP project. Since we've already reviewed today's hearing procedures, I now open the public hearing on pre-considered LU 46, the Broadway Triangle Barlett Crossing. This application submitted by HPD pursuant to Article 16 of the General Municipal Law and Sections 197C of the New York City Charter requests the designation of an urban development action area, approval of an urban development action area project for such area, and an approval for the disposition of city-owned property to a developer to be selected by HPD. for property located at 31 Barlett Street, Block 2269, Lot 52, in the Brooklyn Council District, represented by Councilmember Ressler. Councilmember Ressler, would you like to provide remarks?
Oh, Chair Lewis, thank you so much. And I will be brief, but I just have to say this is the most joyful land use action I could have the pleasure of being a part of. I won't go into a long story, but I'll just say, I don't know, 13 or 14 years ago, when I had no gray hairs, I got involved with the Broadway Triangle Community Coalition. We started meeting every week on Whipple Street. This young lawyer named Shekhar Krishnan was joining us every week. This young council staffer named Antonio Reynoso was joining us every week. Rob Solano, Juan Ramos, and many of folks who've become close allies and comrades and confidants. And we fought back against corruption at HPD, corruption by then boss Vito Lopez, to unilaterally redevelop the largest open site in all of North Brooklyn. And we successfully litigated. We fought in the streets and we ultimately successfully litigated. Shekhar actually litigated the case and stopped that totally unacceptable development that had been planned for the Broadway Triangle. And under new leadership at HPD, many years later, following the terms of the settlement of the litigation, the diversity of the Williamsburg community came together to jointly redevelop this site. So Jewish community organizations, Latino community organizations, UJO, Riseboro, St. Nick's Alliance, and Los Sureis all teamed up together to say that we are going to redevelop the largest open site in North Brooklyn to serve the diversity of our community. And that's what this disposition is all about. So this disposition of city property is going to 100% affordable housing. It's going to mixed use development that's going to have great community facility space that meets our needs. The Broadway Triangle redevelopment is really one of the things that gives me like confidence and inspiration to be involved in public service, that we can make a difference, that we can bring our communities together. And I'm just so thrilled that it's moving forward. I'm feel lucky to have a small part in getting to support this disposition. And I really want to thank all of the elected officials from the North Brooklyn community who have worked to foster this collaboration and cooperation of our diverse communities, and the community-based organizations who are doing great work. I especially want to thank Frank, who I see on here, but really all of the folks at the various community-based organizations, UJO, Riseboro, and Los Sureis. And I want to thank HPD for having the wisdom and seeing the opportunity in supporting local nonprofit affordable housing developers to redevelop our community, because nobody knows our neighborhoods better than our local community-based organizations, our local community development corporations. So this is really like, I don't mean to be too hyperbolic in my word choices here, but this is an extraordinary thing. And I'm so proud that it's moving forward. And I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity to say a few words at the beginning, especially Chair Lewis. So I'll shut up, but thank you very much for the chance to just say hello and express how meaningful this project is to me.
This is what true unity looks like. Thank you for your leadership, council member. We are joined today by Charlie Stewart and Frank Lang from the St. Nick's Alliance and Paris Strutter from HPD. Council, please administer the affirmation.
Please raise your right hands and respond when I call your names. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions? Charlie Stewart.
I do.
Frank Lang.
I do.
Paris Strutter.
I do.
If you have a PowerPoint presentation, it will be displayed upon your request. You may all begin.
Great. I have a PowerPoint. Can I share my screen?
Please do.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see screen? Oh, it looks like it's being shared. Okay. Great. So thank you, everyone, and good morning. My name is Charlie Stewart. I'm the Assistant Director of Real Estate Development here at St. Nick's, and I'm joined with my colleague, Frank Lang. And we're here to talk about Bartlett Crossing Site A2, which is part of the overall Broadway Triangle Development Project. Next slide, please. So we are seeking a disposition of a city-owned site, an urban development action area designation, and a UDAP approval for this project. Next slide. Our development team consists of 4 Brooklyn-based CDCs, including Los Sudes, Riseboro, St. Nick's, and UJO. Our builder partner is Mega Contracting, and our architects are Magnuson and Marvel Design. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the 4 development sites that are part of the overall project, which are all located in the Broadway Triangle neighborhood of Williamsburg. Next slide, please. And here we're just identifying properties located close by that were built by members of our development team and are currently owned and managed. Next slide, please. And this slide shows an aerial view of the 4 development sites that comprise the overall Broadway Triangle project. Site C is located at the top of your screen between Jerry Street, Throop Avenue, and Bartlett Streets, and is the first site that will begin construction. And we are closing next month in June and starting construction in July. Site B is located between Jerry and Bartlett Streets and is currently in the planning phase. It will consist of 2 buildings, one located on Jerry Street and the other on Bartlett Street, with a landscape courtyard between them. And sites A1 and A2 are located on separate blocks, but will be developed as one project. Site A2 is the smallest site in the project and is the only one requiring ULURP. Next slide. Our overall vision for this project is for affordability, open space, community facilities, and energy efficiency. We will have 390 units of affordable housing and over 20,000 square feet of landscaped open space for resident use. Community facilities include a space in the ground level of Site C that St. Nick's Workforce Development Group will occupy, as well as a 2,000 square foot space in Site B that will be jointly programmed by the 4 partner organizations. And finally, a 1,300 square foot space that we're designating for a non-for-profit coffee shop in Site A1. All buildings will be designed to passive house standards, will be 100% electric, flood resilient, will utilize New York State brownfield tax credits, and will have rooftop solar arrays. Next slide, please. So narrowing our focus down from the overall project to Bartlett Crossing Site A. Site A consists of 2 sites. We're calling them Site A1 and A2. These 2 sites combine to provide 78 affordable housing units and 1 superintendent's unit. And like the rest of the project, the buildings will be passive house, all electric, flood resilient, and will have rooftop panels. Next slide. And so finally, narrowing the focus down to the smallest building in the project, the site that's going through ULURP that we're here to discuss today. We're planning 29 units of affordable housing at this building with all of the sustainability features as the overall project. The building will have a landscaped rear yard, a community room, a laundry room with an adjoining roof terrace, and a bike level on the ground level, a bike storage on the ground level. Next slide, please. And here we're showing the affordability and unit mix in the 2 sites that make up Bartlett Crossing. The ULURP site, Site A2, is highlighted here in yellow. Site A2 has 3 formerly homeless units, 3 units at 30, 40, and 50% of AMI, 11 units at 60% of AMI, and 6 units at 80%. Of the 29 total units, 7 are studios, 14 are 1 bedrooms, and 8 are 2 bedrooms. Next slide. And this slide just shows the ranges of rent for each affordability level and the corresponding income limits. Next slide. And here's a rendering of the building from Bartlett Playground facing northwest. The building structure will be a block and plank, and like the other sites, the facade will be a reinforced concrete panelized system that will create a unified look and feel across all of the buildings in this project. Next slide. And here is our anticipated timeline for ULURP. We certified in December of 2021 and hope to have approval by summer and or fall, and look to close on construction financing next year. Next slide, please. And one element of this project that we also wanted to highlight is our outreach committee, which will be formed to ensure broad dissemination of advertising and application opportunities across Community Board 3. All of the sites in this project have a 50% preference for Community Board 1 and 3 residents. So we have enlisted 3 partner organizations in Bed-Stuy who will help ensure that we provide opportunities to all residents in this area and citywide. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation, and we look forward to any questions that you may have.
Council, do any members have any questions?
Council members who have questions should use the raise hand button. I see no council member questions on this.
All right, thank you so much for your testimony. There will be no more council member questions for this panel, but before I excuse this panel, I noticed someone from HPD is on and wanted to know if you will be on for the remainder of the hearing.
Yes. Well, no, not for this. For item number 2, I can't be. I have another call, but number 3, yes.
If you can make sure someone from HPD remains on for the record. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there is, but yeah, before I leave, I'll make sure someone else is for sure. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. This panel is excused.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, council. Are there any members of the public who wish to testify on this item?
There are no members of the public signed up to testify to this item.
Okay, so this is closed. Seeing no members of the public who wish to testify on pre-considered LU 46, the Broadway Triangle Barlett Crossing project, the public hearing on this item is now closed. With the support of local Councilmember Ressler, we will now vote to approve LU 46, the Broadway Triangle Barlett Crossing project. Council, please call the roll.
Lewis.
I vote aye.
Feliz.
Aye.
Councilmember Feliz.
I vote aye.
De La Rosa. Councilmember De La Rosa.
Aye, sorry.
Marte.
I vote aye.
Nurse.
Aye.
Ung.
Aye.
Vernikoff.
I vote aye.
By a vote of 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and with 0 abstentions, the item is approved and recommended to the full Land Use Committee.
Thank you and congratulations, Councilmember Ressler. We will now move on to today's other public hearings. I will now open the public hearing on pre-considered LU 45 to 34 Morningside Avenue ANCP cluster. This application was submitted by the Department of Housing Preservation and Development pursuant to Article 16 of the General Municipal Law and Articles 10 of the Private Housing Finance Law, requesting waiver of the designation requirement of sections 693 of the General Municipal Law, waiver of the requirements of sections 197C and 197D of the cluster, approval of the project as an urban development action area project, and approval of an exemption from real property taxation pursuant to sections 577 of the Private Housing Law. For properties located at 494 Manhattan Avenue, 321 West 116th Street, 231 West 116th Street, and 357 West 115th Street, and 37 Morningside Avenue in Manhattan. These actions will facilitate the renovation of 5 partially occupied city-owned residential buildings and their conversion from rentals to co-ops owned by the tenants as part of HPD's Affordable Neighborhood Cooperative Program. We also know it as ANCP. The city took ownership of all 5 buildings from delinquent landlords through an in rem foreclosure between the years of 1974 and 1978. And have been part of the tenant interim lease, or also known as TEAL program, ever since. According to the information supplied by HPD, together with the 5 buildings, have 567 open HPD violations, 457 of which are categorized as hazardous or immediately hazardous, rendering many of the units uninhabitable. Also, according to HPD, of the 67 existing units, only 26 remain occupied. The council's approval is required for the city to convey the buildings to Restoring Communities HDFC, which will oversee the rehabilitation of the buildings. The buildings will be rehabilitated by Genesis LLC. When the renovations are complete, Restoring Communities HDFC will convey the building to a cooperative HDFC governed by the building's tenants. According to the project summary submitted by HPD, existing tenants of the building will be able to buy their units for $2,500, while new tenants will be able to buy in at prices affordable to families earning 100% of AMI. The monthly maintenance for all units will be set to rates affordable to families earning 40% of AMI. All buildings would be exempt from real property taxation for 40 years. The buildings are located in the council district represented by Councilmember Richardson Jordan, who are now recognized to offer opening remarks. Councilmember Richardson Jordan.
I want to take a highway. That's what I'm. So I am right now testifying to the committee. I am here standing with residents who are part of the TIL program. I and the residents are asking you to vote no on this proposal. I'll pull away a little bit so you can clearly hear me. But what's going on with this ANCP program is our residents are getting far less than they were promised. Under TIL, these residents were not only guaranteed the upgrades, but they were also guaranteed control of the building, which is not going to happen under ANCP. In addition, the outside buyers were at 100% AMI. They have just recently been tweaked to 80% AMI. I want to be clear that the population in this district, that we have a third of our population living at $25,000 a year or less of longtime Harlemites. We then have others living at 49. Our average AMI is somewhere around 40% AMI, which people living at 49,000 a year or less. So these 8, and this is for longtime Harlemites, not recent gentrifiers. So these 80% AMI units for outside buyers are not for Harlemites, and they're a real disservice to the program. Aside from affordability, there are issues with the control and management of Genesis. I have met with Tenant Association for 34 Morningside, and they have brought up that the upgrades, that they have been promised a set of upgrades only to see Genesis come back with altered and reneged plans. Multiple tenants currently residing in 2-bedroom apartments have been told that the new plans will transform their units into single-bedroom apartments. Portions of the current buildings have been restricted, locks changed without notice or approval. Many have been pressured into signing a petition and forms without knowing what they are signing, and often fearing retaliation and worrying that they will not receive the improvements they desperately need. No person should be forced to decide out of fear, especially regarding the fundamental right of housing. In addition to the concerning information we received from local stakeholders, it's clear that the program fees of this project are unreasonable. There's a developer fee of $3.8 million. There are, at this time, other development partners willing to waive the fee and more than that, actually put into creating housing for these TIL buildings. This is not only something about this particular project in our district, but the TIL program as a whole, which was created in the 70s and created in the spirit of creating low-income housing for residents who have been formerly in slumlord buildings. I am asking my colleagues to vote no on this proposal. I am asking for a no vote from this subcommittee. And I am asking for backup as we fight for TIL as it was originally intended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Richardson Jordan. We are joined by Brian Dennis, Xiomara Peraza, Rosa Kelly from HPD, and Nicole Lockett and Amelia Redu from the Genesis companies. I now recognize the subcommittee council to administer the affirmation.
Please raise your right hands and respond when I call your names. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions? Brian Dennis.
Yes.
Xiomara Perdaza.
Yes.
Rosa Kelly.
Yes.
Nicole Lockett.
Yes.
Amelia Rideau.
Yes.
Thank you. Your PowerPoint presentation will be loaded. When you call for it, you may begin.
Great, thank you, Chair Lewis, and hello, everyone. Can you please load the presentation? Thank you. Again, I'm Brian Dennis, Deputy Director of the Affordable Neighborhoods Cooperative Program, and I'm joined by Xiomara Pedraza, who's our Assistant Commissioner of Housing Opportunity and Preservation, and members from the Genesis companies. Those three will help with responding to questions. Okay, next slide. The 34 Morningside cluster is part of HPD's Affordable Neighborhood Cooperative Program, which is the only program available that facilitates co-op conversion for tenants in the tenant interim lease program. ANCP was developed to incorporate policies built over time and in response to lessons learned from the former TIL development program. In one such instance of policy refinement, buildings that leave city ownership for rehab are transferred to Neighborhood Restore HTFC and remain under this nonprofit's ownership until cooperative conversion. Upon co-op conversion, Neighborhood Restore transfers title of the physical building's ownership to the newly formed cooperative HTFC, which comprises of returning tenants. In this project, 35 Harlem families will have the opportunity to return and purchase a unit. In October 17, Genesis Companies was designated as a sponsor for 34 Morningside. As sponsor, their primary responsibilities include rehabbing the distressed buildings, marketing the vacant units, coordinating property management during construction, and ensuring co-op conversion. Under ANCP, Genesis will never hold title to any of these 5 buildings. Recently, Genesis and Habitat for Humanity has engaged in conversations around partnership for 34 Morningside. Both entities are working towards an agreement outlining responsibilities and development fee. Over the several years that Genesis has been with this project, they've developed good relationships with tenants and have gained their support for the process and have stressed to Genesis the importance of keeping this project moving forward. Next slide, please. Okay, for some history on TIL, Tenant Interim Lease Program. TIL was created in 1978 to assist organized tenant associations in city-owned buildings to develop economically self-sufficient low-income cooperatives, where tenants have the opportunity to purchase their apartments. Under TIL, TAs enter into a net lease with the city and are governed by articles of association and bylaws. TAs coordinate to operate and be governed by articles of association and bylaws until the building is assigned to a sponsor and rehabilitated through ANCP. Tenants are given the opportunity to form housing development fund corporations. And the original TIL development program was targeted to TAs that were already investing in some of their own labor in repairing their buildings. The original program provided funding, but only for minor rehabs. Next slide, please. Okay, now for ANCP. ANCP selects qualified developers to rehab city-owned TIL properties and create affordable HCFC cooperatives for low and moderate income households. ANCP provides low-interest loans that do not require any debt payment in the form of city capital subsidy. Additionally, construction and permanent financing sources are provided by, but not limited to, private institutional lenders and New York State Affordable Housing Corporation. As mentioned before, all properties are transferred to restoring communities upon construction loan closing and then conveyed to newly formed cooperatives upon conversion. To convert to cooperatives, 80% of existing tenants must, 1, attend at least 8 provided training courses in cooperative homeownership, 2, remain current with their rent payments, and 3, agree to purchase a unit for $2,500 or $250 if they qualify for what we call the unit purchase savings plan. Next slide. Now for some basic information on the properties and their history. 34 Morningside cluster consists of 5 buildings, which all entered city ownership through in-rem foreclosure between 1978 and 1989. All buildings entered the TIL program in various years between 1999 and 2002. Currently, there are 66 total residents. After construction, an additional 2-bedroom unit will be created for a total of 67. Post-construction, the project will have a unit mix that will consist of 1 studio, 19 bedrooms, 19 2-bedrooms, 28 3-bedrooms, and 67 of the 35 will be returning tenants, while the remaining 32 will be marketed to the public. 3 of the 5 buildings have been fully vacated, and 2 are partially vacant due to poor conditions and limited maintenance since coming into city ownership. Full relocation for the last 2 remaining buildings will occur before the start of construction. Next slide. The 35 existing Harlem tenants will be offered the opportunity to purchase their shares in the co-op for a purchase price of $2,500, and there's no income restriction for these existing tenants. As described on the previous slide, we have a unit purchase savings plan for individuals who earn at or below 80% AMI. This rent-to-own model helps ensure existing families face no barrier to purchasing. Additionally, we seek Section 8 for insiders to support maintenance payments. There are 4 commercial spaces as a part of this project, and once occupied, they will generate additional income for their respective HDFCs. The 32 vacant homeowner units are anticipated to be sold to income qualifying families at a sales price of 100% AMI. The developer is responsible for marketing the vacant units according to the HBD marketing guidelines. Insiders and outsiders will have a proposed equalized maintenance of 40% AMI. And for the last slide. So in summary, HPD requests the UDAP and disposition of the 5 buildings in the 34 Morningside cluster, approval of an Article 11 tax exemption benefit that will coincide with the terms of our regulatory agreement to maintain affordability. And lastly, just to drive this point home, that tenant associations presidents have executed letters of support for 34 Morningside and stress that they do not want any delay in approval or the commencement of this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna ask a few questions. I apologize in advance if any of the questions I ask are repetitive. I just want to get it on the record. So I'll start with the TIL program. You mentioned that these buildings are in the TIL program and that they need to be rehabbed. So I wanted to know if you could quickly explain the TIL program.
Sure, yes. So the TIL program was created in 1978 for buildings that, well, this New York City, earlier on, there was a lot of properties that foreclosed on and were foreclosed on and accepted by New York City. And the TIL program was one program that was created to sort of mobilize tenants and facilitate home ownership. And as part of that process, what TIL offered was some minor rehabs, usually capital rehabs, such as fixing the roof or fixing the boiler, and sent them on to home ownership. But the ANCP, so there was some, we've learned through experience for TIL that there are parts of that process that could be better tweaked. For instance, a number of the earlier HDFCs that were created through TIL did not have regulatory agreements that regulated or controlled the affordabilities. And that's one change that we made with the Affordable Neighborhoods Cooperative program. Additionally, when buildings in Till left city ownership, they were temporarily owned by the sponsor, and that at times presented a conflict of interest. So that changed to have a nonprofit organization to take ownership during construction, while a developer or sponsor does the rehab, solves for that issue that came up a few times before.
Thank you. So what obligation does the city have to maintain these buildings for the existing tenants under the TEAL program that you just shared?
Well,
Brian, if I may.
Sure.
I'll just jump in here. So under the TIL program of today, it's not a development program, but they do annual inspections of the buildings, and they do provide some funding for minor repairs and or relocation if the units or buildings are not habitable any longer. So these are buildings that have been in city ownership for so long that many of them are deteriorated to the point where tenants are no longer able to live in the buildings. And so TIL will relocate them if needed, but they are not set up today to do substantial rehab. As Brian mentioned, they previously in the past did some moderate rehab, and the original TIL development program was really based on this idea of sweat equity. So the original tenants were also pitching in and doing a lot of the work themselves. And now these buildings are in a state where it's far beyond that point. And so we need a real substantial rehab and development program that's gonna meet the needs of the buildings.
So Siamata, you explained that it's uninhabitable. Could you explain the current conditions and what the specific HPD violations that make it necessary to complete the renovation of this building?
Yeah, so I think Brian mentioned that a few of the buildings have been vacated. Brian, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah. Out of the 5 buildings, 3 have been fully vacated because of the conditions. Simply just you cannot live in them, and they've been vacated as early as 2018. That's 321 West 116th Street has been vacated since 2018. 357 West 115th Street has been vacated recently in 2021, and 494 Manhattan has been vacated since 2007. And a lot of the violations are pertaining to lead violations, or just like simply inhabitable where you really can't live there.
If you could be a little bit more explicit on the actual inhabitable component, I think we need to have this for the record.
Right. So in terms of inhabitable, like structural issues with the buildings, where either the ceiling or the foundation is not strong enough to support the weight of people and items. So when it gets to the point of where there are structural issues that presents a danger, where the DOB will issue an emergency declaration to have those buildings vacated. And for these buildings, that's the case, where emergency declarations have been issued and they've been vacated of all the tenants.
If you could please explain the role of Genesis in this project. Will Genesis ever take ownership of the buildings? And was Genesis awarded this contract as part of an RFP competitive bidding process?
Yeah, so Genesis will never take ownership of the buildings themselves. They are just the sponsor who's responsible for making sure the construction is completed and that they're converting the HDFCs to co-ops. Their involvement is just overseeing the project and never taking ownership of the buildings themselves. And they were selected through an RFQ process, just to answer your second question. So we have a competitive RFQ that is rolling. Any developer can submit an application to be on that RFQ for these city-owned sites, and that ensures that there's a fair and transparent process when we are developing city-owned sites. We look at developer experience in affordable housing and managing these types of projects. and financial capability, because we do expect developers to also put in some equity into the project themselves.
And we welcome new developers, new sponsors to apply to that rolling RFQ. It's available on our website. We will share that link widely so folks have it, but we always encourage elected officials and local council members to recommend folks for us to consider for these projects.
Thank you. And concerns have been expressed that the city should dispose its property to community land trusts. Does HPD have a response to that?
Yeah, so any community land trust can also apply to be on the RFQ, and we will definitely consider them as we would any other developer or nonprofit entity that wants to participate in the program.
The price of the units for existing tenants will be $2,500, and the prices for new tenants will be set prices affordable to families earning 100% or 80% of the AMI. How do these prices compare to comparable cooperative and condominium units prices in the neighborhood?
That's an excellent question. We did look at the market rates in the area, and the 100% AMI prices are 50% below market. And then the 80% of AMI obviously would be even more affordable. I do just want to put out there that if we do go down to the 80% of AMI, it will create a significant gap in the budget of 1.7 million, which we would need to fund through some other source. And so if council is interested in providing us a way to do that, we are more than happy to have that conversation.
What assistance will be available if an existing tenant doesn't have the $2,500?
Yeah, so we do have the savings program that Brian mentioned. This is a purchase savings program. So tenants who participate can have their existing rent that they're paying go towards a saving account that we keep separate. And then once the project is finished in the construction phase, we have that account used to go towards their purchase price. So they basically continue to pay the rent that they are paying today. And we save that money for them so that they can place the purchase price down and purchase their unit.
Thank you. I want to yield to Councilmember Richardson Jordan if she has any questions, and if not, then I'll yield to the council to see if any council members have questions.
So I do have a series of questions, but I'll defer to my fellow council members for now. Thank you.
So are there any members of the committee that has any questions?
If there are any council members who have questions, please use the raise hand button now. Councilmember Marte has a question, followed by Councilmember Feliz.
Thank you. Just for background, is Genesis the company that's affiliated with former Lieutenant Governor Brian Benjamin? Is that the same organization?
Yeah, so I'll invite either Amelia or Nicole, who are representatives from Genesis, to talk about that.
So Genesis Companies, this is Amelia, was founded in 2004. We've been around for 18 years. Brian Benjamin was in our employ from 2012 to 2017. He is no longer affiliated with the firm and has been out of our employment since 2017. He has never had any ownership and currently does not have any financial interest in the firm.
Councilmember Marte, do you have any other questions?
No more questions. Thank you for that.
Councilmember Feliz has a question.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you to everyone who has joined this morning and provided information. So earlier I heard the word mortgage and debt. So I was just curious, can you talk about how much debt we're talking about, how our tenants going to be affected, whether it's rent, whether it's a monthly maintenance fee, and how much, what's the total debt, and how much would that constitute per tenant, more or less?
Sure, I'll let Brian talk about the specifics of the amount of debt, but I just will say that most of the debt is HPD city capital debt. and those have no debt payments. So it would not impact the affordability of the project. And then there is another source, which is private mortgage. And then there's also AHC grants that we get from the state to fund the project. But Brian, do you want to provide the specific numbers?
Yeah, and I'll start by saying that first, the numbers that we have here is still, it's tentative as we're still finalizing the budget, but it's all based on the total development costs, where the construction, the hard costs will roughly be about 63.47% of the total hard costs, and then the soft costs, which includes the attorney fees, fees related to filing permits, that's around 28%. To pay for it, we use several sources: private debt and city capital debt. City capital debt can't cover all of the total costs. For instance, like the fees pertaining to financing. So that's why we utilize private debt to cover a portion of it. Private debt roughly amounts to about 28% of the budget, and the city capital debt will be about 60% of the budget. So the purpose for why we are underwriting or proposing 100% of AMI is so that the vacant unit sales prices can cross-subsidize the $2,500 that the insiders are paying to return to the building. So with that, pardon me. So it pretty much breaks down to that. The HPD portion, or the city capital portion, the tenants are there are no loan payments on that for tenants, so they're not paying month to month. The maintenance that tenants are paying at 40% AMI, it's mainly to cover the expenses of the building, like to operate the building, such as the heating, the common electric, et cetera, and also cover the private debt that's incurred on the properties.
And I'll just confirm as well that 40% AMI maintenance costs are set for across the board for the entire building. So it's not just the existing residents who will have the low maintenance costs, it's also the outside buyers.
I believe that Councilmember Nurse has a question now.
Thank you. Doing the double hearing thing today, so trying to tentatively be attentive both. So if I ask a duplicate question, many apologies. I just had a question in terms of how many tenants have signed off on this, the existing tenants?
Sure. So we have an internal system of where we need 80% of the tenant body of a building to sign off on the design plans, and we've achieved that for all 5 buildings. So
all the tenants are signed off?
We have more
Just
than
the
80%
numbers.
of the numbers. We can get back to you. We can follow up on the exact numbers for who signed off on the design layouts.
You have a sense from now, as of this moment, is it 50%, 60%, 30%?
It's more than 80%,
Okay.
which is our minimum requirement to move forward in the program.
What assurances are there that the layouts of their buildings or of their units won't change if they prefer their units the way they are?
So if they signed off and they preferred the units the way they are, the chances that they'll change is very minimal, unless there are instances during construction that's required by code and to get full sign off where they need to be changed. And in that instance, we do notify tenants, specific tenants who where their units are being affected.
And I will just add to that, I think these buildings have not had significant rehab in a very long time, and building code standards have changed greatly over the course of that time. And so there may have been unit changes or layouts that people may not like, but need to conform to building code because, for instance, accessibility reasons or other things that nowadays we have to incorporate into any sort of rehab that we do.
I have just two final questions if I have time. I know the briefing mentioned that Section 8 would be made available. What's going to happen to folks who are not eligible?
Yeah, so the maintenance is set so that it's affordable to those who can't receive the Section 8 as well. So it's at 40% of AMI. And we have received income surveys from a majority of the tenants. And from those income surveys, we've seen that on average, they earn about 30% of AMI. So they will be getting Section 8 vouchers.
Do you have an estimate of how many tenants won't be?
So for the ones that did not submit the tenant income survey, we don't have the information until they give us their income document.
But of the folks who have, are you saying that everybody who has, or do you know how everyone who has submitted will qualify for the voucher?
Yes, that's correct.
And my last question, are you all seeking other subsidies to bring down the affordability or to make it more affordable?
Yeah, so like we mentioned, we could bring it down to 80% of AMI for the restricted sales prices. But that would create a gap of $1.7 million. And so we have in the past partnered with City Council to bring in Reservoir money. So we definitely would be willing to do that here. Unfortunately, because it's a homeownership project, there's not a lot of like other sort of government sources out there that we can bring into this project. Whereas like some other rental projects, we have like tax credits or other sort of tools in our toolbox for affordability.
Okay, and my last question now, and then I'll move to back to the chair. But what does governance look like after the transfer of ownership?
That's a great question. So there's annual elections currently within the Till buildings, and those will continue. So there will be an annual election for anyone who wants to be on the board and participate, and all of the shareholders will be able to vote on their representatives. So people who are interested, even existing tenants, can continue to serve on the board if that's what they desire.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chair.
I believe the chair has a question.
Yeah, two quick questions. Thank you. We understand that HPD wants to support residents that will benefit. You want to support residents because this will benefit from home ownership. And this is also an opportunity to build intergenerational wealth. So I wanted to ask what restrictions will apply to sales of units by existing tenants?
That's an excellent question. So all of the units will have a regulatory agreement tied to the property, which dictates that the units cannot be sold beyond the 100% AMI or 80% AMI, depending on where we land there. But that is with a 30-year term. So that regulatory agreement will be with the property for 30 years. At the end of 30 years, we structure our debt so that there's a balloon payment at the end, which helps us leverage that affordability so that the co-op comes back and then we can refinance and extend that affordability for another 30, 40 years.
And what's the possibility of creating intergenerational wealth for these tenants?
Yeah, so if they are the existing tenants, they purchase at a really low price of $2,500 or $250. And once they've lived in the building for a few years, they're able to pass it down to people and members of their family, or sell it and purchase something if this is a stepping stone, purchase something elsewhere. So they're able to resell it at the 100% AMI price or 80% AMI price. And so they are building intergenerational wealth in that regard.
And Ciamata, what will happen to these buildings if this action is not approved?
So unfortunately, if this action isn't approved, the buildings will continue to sort of languish in the TIL program. And we do know that the TAs are eager to get their projects renovated and become owners. And so we would really like to be able to do that for them and fulfill our promise.
So I think Councilmember Nurse shared some key points earlier. Understanding how many of the tenants want to sign on to this is very important for us to know. And what will happen to existing tenants and existing vacant units if it's not approved? Is HPD just gonna leave it there, or could we come back to the drawing board?
Yeah, so we can definitely, I think we'll be submitting the support letters and other information after this hearing, and we can definitely follow up with the exact number of tenants who signed off on their plans, saying that they're interested in becoming homeowners. And we can definitely follow up for further conversations on how to further refine the proposal, for sure.
Thank you. We look forward to the responses that the members asked for. I'm going to turn it back over to Council.
Thank you.
And now Councilmember Richardson Jordan has questions.
Yeah, so a few things I want to clarify. The first, and I don't know if perhaps Genesis can elaborate, but the process for signing the petitions was not transparent or frankly moral. I have residents who have said that they felt threatened. I have residents who said they feared retribution. If they didn't sign the paper, then they were going to get the worst repairs, or there would be no repairs. And so I really just think there's been some terrible tactics with that. And I want to urge my fellow council members to not go on that paperwork, but go on the physical bodies that you see out here today, because people did feel threatened by that process and weren't given all the information. I also want to say that there is right now a developer, the Congressional Black Caucus for New Urbanism, that is interested in rehabbing TIL buildings in central Harlem. They are willing to do it without a deed transfer. They're willing to do it without ANCP support. They are interested in actually putting money into making a long-term, low-income Black home ownership for these buildings. So the other thing that has not been adequately presented is the alternative. There is an alternative to this. It is not this or nothing.
Thank you, Council Member. Council, are there any members of the public who would like to testify?
Well, Chair, let's just make sure. Are there any other council member questions on this project? If there are any other council member questions, please raise your hands now. I see no more council member questions.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to testify?
There are. So if we want to thank the panel, we can excuse
sorry
them.
about that. I want to thank the panel for your testimony. I wanted to know if the panel will stay on for the remainder of this conversation, being that there are members of the public that would like to testify.
Yes, we're happy to stay.
Thank you so much. So this portion, so first I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank council members for being here, and want to now.
We do have public witnesses.
Yes, I want to kick it over to you so that you can introduce them. Thank you.
Okay. Our first panel will be Barry Weinberg, Shanae Thompson, Jeremiah Slotman, and Janae Ferguson.
Starting time.
Let's start with Barry Weinberg.
Starting time.
Barry Weinberg there.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're
Yes.
starting time now.
Thank you. So my name is Barry Weinberg. I'm the current chair of Manhattan Community Board 9, which does not cover these buildings, but I come here with the blessing of the chair of Board 10, which does cover them. The Community Board 9 in 2017, 5 years ago this month, adopted a resolution calling for a halt on transfers of TIL buildings to ANCP, and for the council to fully fund repairs to be made by the city on these properties that the city owns, as was agreed when the tenants gave up their rent-regulated leases all those years ago. HPD is sitting here either lying or twisting their words to the council. The mortgages, first of all, if Genesis would never take any type of ownership in the building, why would they put in equity? Equity implies ownership. Second of all, these mortgages that HPD talks about that would not have to be repaid, HPD has an internal name for them. They call them enforcement debt. It is to give HPD the right at nearly any time to foreclose on the HCFC. So they went from owning buildings without debt under TIL to owning buildings drowning in debt under ANCP that can be foreclosed on at any time. The council really needs to stop funding ANCP and to make sure that the city directly contracts with contractors to repair these buildings in TIL that it owns so that they can be turned over to the tenants that have been running them for all these years for free for the agreed upon $250 an apartment. And I urge the council to consider additional oversight hearings into TIL and the process by which this is happening. But I urge you, please make sure these repairs and rehabilitations are funded through TIL, not ANCP. Do not approve this transfer, and make sure that the promises are kept to these tenants and homeowners to be that were made when they gave up their rent stabilized leases. We have submitted this as a budget request to OMB and HPD every single year since 2017. Thank you.
Our next witness is Shanae Thompson.
Starting time.
Hi, I am Shanae Thompson. I currently live at 34 Morningside, and I am against Genesis rehabbing the building. We originally were brought in to a meeting stating that yes, our apartments would not change drastically, and from the blueprints that we have, the blueprints show that our apartments are going to change drastically. I'm trying to show you a picture of that blueprint. If you guys, I don't think you guys can see it. I could probably email it, but our apartments, number one, have been listed wrong. This is 3B and we are 3C. And if you can see here, you can't see, but the B line is basically the square footage at this current time is about 330 square feet, whereas ours is 482 square feet. And they're changing ours to give to the B side. They're cutting our main bedroom practically in half, and we're losing our second bedroom where our kids live. And then for the stairs, that they're saying that because our stairs are under regulation, where originally they said that the second bedroom was not in regulation with the state, in which I did my own square footage, and it is within a reason for the state. So that's why I'm not agreeing with this. And we did feel forced and pressured to sign these documents. You know, it's great to want a new apartment and be a part of this, but the pricing that they just showed us, it's not way above our means, but it will put us in a tight spot paying that maintenance fee, including the rent, to pay an extra $1,000.
Our next panelist will be Jeremiah Slotman.
Starting time.
Hello, yes, I'm Jeremiah Schlotman. I'm the Deputy Legal Director of Palante, Harlem. I strongly urge the members of the council on this committee to vote no on this because, you know, beyond the rightful scrutiny that this specific project is receiving, just as you saw from one of the residents at 34 Morningside, there's questions into the propriety of the petition that will be submitted to you all for your review and the promises that were made and how things were actually communicated. I think beyond the specific project, I think it's part and parcel of a very important fight, which Mr. Weinberg talked about during his testimony, which is the sleight of hand and the failure of the city to keep the promises that they made long ago to these working class and lower income communities of color, which have been historically marginalized and which the city could not attract any private capital to when those neighborhoods were deemed undesirable. And now a lot of those TAs have been performing the work unpaid, have been attending classes, keeping up with all of their end of the bargain, only for the city to slowly disinvest and neglect the TIL program, and then use that as an excuse to create the ANCP program, which benefits a lot of these private entities. And as you know, you can just look at the numbers. I know there's a lot of talk about the funding, but the costs have skyrocketed. There aren't sufficient controls to rein in costs or to scrutinize what's going on. The reliance upon the Section 8 voucher, the Section 8 program, to keep up with these ballooning maintenance costs on the building in itself is fraught, because Section 8 has been defunded historically as well. And we don't know whether it'll stay. And also, with respect to building generational wealth, there's so much danger in the regulatory agreement being only 30 years, and then we just have to revisit this. We know how political winds and dynamics change, and we have no idea whether we will have a council that's willing to fight for the working class folks to whom they pander for votes and say they've got their back, and only for the city to renege on these promises. So I strongly urge you to vote no, and to switch money from ANCP, defund it, and fund again the TIL program. Thank you very much.
We have one more witness on this panel. The next witness on this panel is Shanae Ferguson.
Starting time.
Good morning. I am a concerned community member, and I urge you to vote no. In theory, what is being presented seems great, but when you look at the humanity and the reality of what happens if Native Harlemites are being outplaced or displaced and being bamboozled into signing into these agreements, it's not a good thing for the community. To me, I was born and raised in Harlem, and I've seen what gentrification has done to me and my family. We've all been outplaced. We cannot afford to live in the community that we have so much ties to. And it is just a crime to humanity to not think about the people that did not sign that agreement and why. If you're looking at generational wealth and opportunity, and the people who are there are saying that they're being bamboozled, pay attention to the people that are saying it. You have to pay attention to the community and do what's right for Harlem and the residents that are natives and longtime residents. Thank you.
Are there any council members who have questions for this panel? If there are, please use the raise hand button now. Seeing none, this panel is excused. Our next panel will be Alvin Ferguson, Charles Henderson, Giselle Terry, and Keith Robinson. Alvin Ferguson, when you're ready, you can begin.
Starting time.
Alvin Ferguson. Alvin Ferguson,
Hey,
you can begin.
Yes, how you doing? I live at 231 West 116. I hear what everyone is saying, but every day I have to carry my son past the rats from the abandoned building front. It's a storefront that was burned, and then it's abandoned now, and that's like a breeding ground for where the rats are. There is structural damage in my apartment. I have 3 kids. My wife's been living here since 2002. I've been living here since 2006. My daughter's 15. My son is 10. I have another 4-year-old. We're very clean. We work very hard. We both have very good jobs. And I just don't understand why we have to live in the conditions that we live in. I don't know whose responsibility it is, I've called 311 numerous of times. I've made numerous complaints. I feel, it's gone to a point about safety at this point. It's hazardous because of safety issues. Like I said, the floors are slanted in most apartment cities in New York City, but here I can feel it the moment I walk in my house. I have an open hole over the toilet in my bathroom. It's issues that you can't even cover up, and these are not cosmetic issues, and we've been dealing with this for years. I understand there's a lot of politics and numbers involved. I understand, gentrification, and I'm definitely against it. But if in the meantime, while you guys discuss all this, because you just put me and my family and the rest of my neighbors in a safe building where we could, sleep at night, not have to walk past rats, and be comfortable, and you guys continue the discussion. But I'm not here to pick sides. I'm just here to let you guys know the conditions that we are currently living in. We are currently living in hazardous. The apartments are inhabiting other apartments. Listen, babe, please listen. I'm not picking sides. I'm here to let them know what's going on in the apartment. Politics, this is beyond us. You understand? I just want people to know. This is the current. Some people are living in comfortable apartments, but we're not. Our oven was, we didn't have a stove for 6 months. You know what I'm saying? The heat don't be on all the time. I don't know whose fault that is. That's the till or the cities. You know what I'm saying? Is that gentrification fault? That the pipe is leaning into my son's roof in his room. It's like, I just want to get out the apartment to a comfortable, safe apartment, and while you guys further discuss this, but walking past these dead rats is not okay for us. And, we do want to remain in Harlem, but, not under these conditions. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Our next witness will be Charles Henderson.
Starting time.
Hi, I'm the wife of Charles Henderson, Celeste Henderson, and this is in reference to 494 Manhattan Avenue. We've been out of there since 2007. And I just want to say that it's a shame that it's taken this long, this program, the TIL program, to come to some type of resolution for this. And it's a shame. We would love to be back in Harlem in our original place, 494 Manhattan Avenue. We are Harlemites and we love the area. But we just hoping and praying that, one day that we will be able to get back there before, this is all over with. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next witness will be Giselle Terry.
Starting time.
Hello?
We can
Hello?
hear you. Giselle?
Okay, thank you. Hi, yes, my name is Giselle Terry. I live at 231 West 116th Street. I've been in the TIL program since 2004. I am part of the ANCP cluster. We were promised by the city to have these repairs done to our building. We were promised for affordable home ownership. Nothing has happened. I too am very concerned. I'm dealing with structural issues. I'm dealing with rodents in my apartment. I've made several concerns. I've hired my own company to come to take a rat out of my apartment. The other times I've opened up my door. I'm really concerned. Heat and hot water issues, mold. I am dealing with health issues that are noted. And I've also contacted HPD for the record, and I'm asking for some answers. This has only gotten worse, and I am really urging someone to look into this. And I want to say Genesis has been good to us. They've been a great partner. We've had many meetings with them. They've been a part of our program. So please, we are urging for some answers, and I'm hoping that we can be afforded this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next panelist will be Keith Robinson.
Starting time.
Keith Robinson there.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Robinson.
Yes, good morning. My name is Keith Robinson. I am the TA president at 357 West 115th Street. I listened to, I've heard everything, and I'm really frustrated in some of the statements made by the representative, Richardson Jordan, who we had never met. But I like to say that we've been in this process over 20 years. The promise of ownership and was the main focus for the tenants in my building, that we would have a legacy. We've been in it, my family's been in that building for over 40 years, since the 1940s rather. And we've gone through all the hardships, we've been through all the promises, we've been through many of the TIL coordinators, we've answered every call, we've adhered to all the demands, we've been to all the classes, and we suffered through the cold, the boilers going out. We've been through the rats in the basement over the last 5 years, a broken elevator for the past 10 years. My 87-year-old mother had to walk up 4 flights of stairs. So we suffered through, but the thing that kept us on point was that we were looking at the ownership. And at every moment we got dashed, hopes were dashed, not dashed, like it was getting ready to happen, in the pipeline, it didn't happen. This time around, ANCP and the Genesis, we started to see some movement over the last couple of years. Even throughout the pandemic, we stayed in contact with Soweto Edwards, who was our liaison with Genesis, and due to the shape of the building, we ended up with a fire in January 2021, burned out the building, and we ended up in shelters. And the ANCP, not ANCP, but Genesis was able to find us a spot for all of the tenants.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any council members who have questions for this panel? Seeing none, this panel is excused. We have, for our next panel, Susan Bryson, Shirley Burnside, Luisa Rodriguez, and Marcus Smith. Susan Bryson, when you're ready, you can begin.
Starting time.
Susan Bryson, you can begin when you're ready.
Good morning, everyone. My family has been in Harlem for several generations, and listening to this panel and seeing the distress of the members of the community, I understand everybody's plight, but I do believe that it's ridiculous at sitting down at 100% API for new members to be able to buy into the buildings, or even to make the maintenance fee that high that the existing members are not able to afford it. Thank you.
Our next panelist will be Shirley Burnside.
Starting time.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, good morning. I'm a tenant of 494 Manhattan Avenue, and I'm also concerned on us. Like Celeste said, that we have been in our building since 2007. We've been under the TIL program. We have been shifted around here, there. We have different coordinators. Every time that we see days, we get to one point, seeing that we get pushed back twice. They gave us a breakdown of our apartments. Our apartments are supposed to be a certain length, and when we got the breakdown, it was a whole different length. So I'm with Celeste that we're just wanting to get back in our apartment. We thank God for Genesis that came in and stepped in, because it seemed like the TIL program, HPD, doesn't care. And I'm saying that it doesn't care, and it's getting to a point that we're frustrated. We lost a couple of our tenants that was living in our building, and it's like they just don't care about the little people. And we are the little people, and we are Harlemites that was in Harlem from day one. I've been here 62 years, and it seems like we're getting pushed out and I think it's very unfair. So I'm waiting to see what's going to happen. And I thank you. I came on late, so I don't even know who Ms. Richardson is, but I understand that she's totally against this, and I just don't understand it, but I'm going to keep her in prayer. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Luisa Rodriguez.
Starting time.
Hi, I'm Luisa Rodriguez, a Till tenant at 615 West 150th Street in Manhattan. My testimony is against the transfer of 34 Morningside to the NCP program or to any other third-party program whatsoever. We, 34 Morningside, like many other Till buildings, entered into an agreement with the city of New York at a time when no developer was interested in investing a penny to restore dilapidated buildings located in very distressed neighborhoods. The city financial position was very low at that time too, so it decided to get the tenants help. And through the Till program, the agreement was that if tenants could manage their building for a number of years, not decades, the city will sell them their units for $250 after the building had been restored entirely with government funds and a cooperative was formed. Not through the financing schemes used in third-party transfers like ANCP, which result in onerous debt for the tenants. We have done our part of that commitment, and we have patiently waited for HPD to deliver on their promise to comply with the agreement. Instead, since the area is now very attractive to investors, HPD is transferring Till buildings to third parties, using Restoring Communities, HCFC, as a trampoline to transfer to it the property deed, the ability to procure loans, and transfer the restored building operations
Time
to a
expired.
selected developer who supposedly must have a good track record of developing home ownership projects. I'm wondering, based on what was Genesis chosen, as its record is a lousy one, shoddy construction work, and very disappointing management record. We are requesting that the city council and other elected officials defund the ANCP and third-party transfer programs and place those funds to rehabilitate the Till buildings without any mortgage for the tenants. We are asking you to deliver Till justice.
Time has expired. If you have additional testimony, you can send it to landustetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Our next panelist is Marcus Smith.
Starting time.
Hi, I'm Marcus Smith. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. All right, I'm the treasurer for 34 Morningside Avenue Tenants Association. We've been in the program, we've been in Till since '99, so we're in our 23rd year. And yeah, we've been through everything just like everyone else. You know, we got half of our tenants relocated, the other half is still in the building. When the Genesis deal was presented to us, and you know, we've been working with them, we went along with it because it was presented to us like this was the only deal. This was it. If you don't get this, then you're just going to stay in the same conditions, and Till isn't doing it anymore. So this is what you have to have. But clearly, I mean, but the deal with Genesis is it is difficult. The maintenance fees go up 2% every year. That's difficult. The debt is too high. That they're saying that we are going to have at least 3 mortgages on this thing, and that's too high. Like I said, we've been in this program and we went along with it because we thought that was the only thing. But we've met with Councilman Jordan, and she's assured us that there are alternatives. and we would like to see what else is out there. We know that the conditions are bad. Everybody, we all have bad conditions, and we all want to go, and we're all frustrated. We know that, but we can't just give up now and just accept anything that's given to us. So we at 34 Morningside Avenue, we are saying no to this deal right now, and we'd like to further meet with Councilman Jordan and look at some other alternatives that will be better for the building down the line. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next witness is Beverly Pabon.
Starting time.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to speak at this hearing regarding 34 Morningside Cluster. I'm against them going into the ANCP program because of the issues that was already stated prior to me regarding the mortgage. The TIL program was not supposed to have a mortgage, and that is a problem for people of low income. HDFCs were primarily made so low income families can have the opportunity to have home ownership, and in doing so will have generational wealth to be passed on. This is the only reason why my building at 2 East 127th Street and 5th Avenue got into the program, so we can have something to pass on. We don't want to pass on debt to our children and then have to move out because they cannot pay this debt. We need to have the HPD and the city council to fund the TIL program in its entirety as the original program was meant for it to be. No mortgage, self-determination, self-reliance, and we would be able to do that if our hands were not tied behind our backs. And now they're trying to, like what was said earlier, new people coming in the neighborhood because they have these incentives, financial incentives, to take over these buildings, but put the people that it should benefit, who really need it, in debt. This is an unfair program. My building would not go into the ANCP program because we asked too many vital questions about payment of this debt, ownership of the apartment, having the right to be self-governed under the ANCP program. Please, I implore all the city council to stop the ANCP program, fund the TIL program. I know people are asking for $200 million now, but it should be an annual thing until all the TIL buildings that are in the program are rehabilitated under the contract that they signed in good faith with the city of New York. Thank you so very much for letting me speak, and please consider all that we are speaking about regarding the ANCP program versus the TIL, which the TIL is much cheaper for the city anyway. Thank you so very much, and I hope to hear from you in a good way for us to be funded 100% for the TIL. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now call Collins Alcator. Is he present? Collins Alcator is present. Collins Alcator, you can begin.
Starting time.
Collins, can you hear us? Collins, please unmute. Collins?
Yes. I'm looking. Okay, hold on.
Starting time.
Can you hear me, please?
We can hear you. Please stop muting yourself. There, we can hear you.
All right. Good morning. I am the president of the Collins Alcator, president of 34 Morningside Avenue Tenant Association. The concerns we are having as regards how TIL program transformed into. We are concerned about gentrification. And thirdly, we don't understand why we went from TIL program to ANCP. We signed up for TIL program. And now, like so many panelists have discussed, it's very clear now that we are under mortgage. Okay. The reason I'm having my reservation is what is the councilwoman having for us? Is it a better program? So that's why we are holding off to see if the other program that they're talking about, what are we still going to be under mortgage or a grant like the TIL program promised us in the beginning? That is our concern. We all want the building to be renovated as soon as possible, but the problem is we don't know how we got into ANCP, like it's the only program available or the only way to go. So we want to know more about this new program that Ms. Jordan is proposing. If it's going to be, it's all in the interest of the tenants, number one. Number two, it's all in the interest of not gentrifying, bringing in the gentrification into this whole problem. Because we just need no gentrification, or at least it's got to be reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any council member questions for this panel? Please use the raise hand button now. Seeing none, this panel is excused, and that is the last panel that we have for this item.
I just quickly want to thank Barry, Shanae, Jeremiah, Janae, Alvin, Miss Henderson. I know you sat in for your husband, Keith, Giselle, Susan, Shirley, Marcus, Beverly, and Collins for joining us and for sharing your concerns. This is completely my remarks. This doesn't represent anyone here on this panel today or the speaker, but I am very disgusted that tenants are living in these conditions, and we expect residents of New York City to cooperate, and agencies are not doing their fair share. That's disgusting. These residents are asking for help. They're reaching out. They're doing their due diligence. We must respond. So I hope HPD is hearing and that we do our due diligence as public servants and help these people where the need is at the current moment. This is aside from this particular project. So seeing no other members of the public wish to testify, the pre-considered LU 45 at 34 Morningside Avenue, ANCP cluster. This item is now closed. Our last public hearing today will be on LU 52 for the Sutter Place NCP project. This application was also submitted by the Department of Housing Preservation and Development pursuant to Article 16 of the General Municipal Law and Section of 197C of the New York City Charter, requesting designation of an urban development action, approval for an urban development action area project for such area, and approval of the disposition of city-owned property to a developer to be selected by HPD. This action would facilitate the development for 4 buildings containing approximately 46 affordable housing units and a commercial space for property located at 492-496 Glenmore Avenue. That is located on block 3725, lot 12 and 13, 2358-2363 Picken Avenue. That is block 4015, lots 22, 23, and 24, 943 Dumont Avenue, block 4063, lot 52, and 743 Blake Avenue, which is block 3775, lot 150 in the Brooklyn Council District, represented by Council Members Nurse and Barron. Is Councilmember Nurse still around to provide remarks?
Councilmember Nurse is here. Councilmember Nurse, the chair has recognized you for remarks.
Sorry, I'm doing the double thing again. Is this for the piece that we just heard on?
Sutter Avenue.
Oh, for Sutter Avenue. Yes, just want to say quickly, the Sutter Place NCP project has been months in the making, if not years, and we've been working hard with the applicants, Manny and Cypress Hills, to deepen the affordability. We've been able to, following the lead of Councilmember Barron, truly we've been able to bring the remaining 70% of the remaining units that were at 70% AMI into 60%. So nothing in the building will be higher than 60% AMI. And we are supportive of this project.
Thank you, Councilmember Nurse. We are joined by Shushma Pramod, Paris Strotter, and Ryan Moraz from HPD. And forgive me if I'm butchering your name, Ishmini Seplotius, and Nick Simmons from MHANY, Sheen Dowell Glassglow from RKTB Architects, and Meredith McNair and Michelle Nugbuyer from Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation. Council, please administer the affirmation.
Okay, I'm going to just wait until all the applicants are in. We have quite a few. We're missing a couple. If everyone will just stand by for a moment. All right. Please raise your right hands and respond when I call your name. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this subcommittee and an answer to all council member questions? Shushma Pramod. Please unmute the panelists.
Just say I do.
Thank you.
Shushma Pramod.
I do.
Paris Strotter.
I do.
Ryan Moroz.
I do.
Ismini Speliotis.
I do.
Nick Simmons. Nick Simmons.
You know, I think he's not unmuted. Hold on. You can't see him because we don't have, you want to just say it here on my phone, Nick?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chen Dao Glasgow.
I do.
Meredith McNair.
I do.
Michelle Neuberger. Or Neubauer. Michelle?
I don't know if Michelle was able to make it to this.
All right. So the witnesses have been sworn in.
If you have any PowerPoint presentations and need it, and it will be displayed when you request it, but you all may begin. Whenever you're ready, you may begin. Let us know if you have a PowerPoint presentation.
Please unmute the panelists. I believe who's presenting?
Thank you. I'll be presenting as well as Chandao and Ismini. So if you can unmute all of those. Thank you. And could we pull up the presentation as well? Thank you. Good morning, everyone, chairless, council members. My name is Sushma Pramod, and I'm a senior planner at the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, and here to present the Sutter Place NCP development project. I am joined today by my HPD colleagues, Paris Trotter, Assistant Commissioner of Planning and Pre-Development, and Ryan Moores, Senior Project Manager, and by members of the development team, Ismini Spiliotis and Nick Simmons from Manny, Meredith McNair from CHLDC, and Shane Glasgow from RKTB Architects. Next slide, please. Sorry, I'm gonna wait for that to come back. Thank you. We're very excited to present the Sutter Place ULURP application, which will facilitate the development of 4 new construction buildings with approximately 46 affordable rental units and approximately 1,783 square feet of commercial space at one of the buildings. All the units will be affordable to very low income and low income families and individuals and will be developed under HPD's Neighborhood Construction Program, or NCP. The ULURP application was certified on December 13th of last year and is seeking approvals for Urban Development Action Area Designation project approval and for the disposition of city-owned land. Next slide, please. The project is being developed as a joint venture between the Mutual Housing Association of New York, MANI, and Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation, or CHLDC, both of which have experience for nearly 4 decades now. CHLDC has been serving the neighborhoods of Cypress Hills and East New York as a community development organization and settlement house with a wide range of services. And MANI is similarly rooted in this neighborhood and has a long track record of affordable housing development and is a home buyer and foreclosure prevention counselor. Next slide, please. The proposed project consists of 4 development sites located at 492 Glenmore Avenue and 2358 Pitkin Avenue towards the north of this map within Council District 37, and 743 Blake Avenue and 943 Dumont Avenue toward the south of the map located within Council District 42. All the development sites are located within a few blocks of each other and are close to the Van Zecklen Avenue C station. Next slide, please. Chandao.
Hi, I'm Chandao, RKTV Architects. I'll be presenting the sites. This is site number 1, 492, 496 Glenmore, 5,000 square foot site empty lot, combining 2 lots in R5B zoning district. Next slide, please. You can see the empty lot here and the street view and the schematic rendering of the building. It will be, all the buildings will have masonry facades, shared rear yards for all tenants. All the smaller buildings will have in-unit laundries. This building is a 3-story walk-up building with 6 affordable 1- and 2-bedroom units. Next slide, please. Here you can see the site plan on the left, which shows the setback of the building at the ground floor to afford privacy measures by planters, and then the same in the rear yard. And you can see the landscape rear yard with raised bed planters, some paving, and trees and landscaping. On the right, you can see the typical floor plans for the units. There are large open kitchen and living room units with large bedrooms. All of these units are at or exceed the HPD minimums and maximums for unit sizes. Next slide, please. This is the second site, a combination of 3 lots totaling 5,378 square feet on Pitkin Avenue. This has a much higher zoning area at R7A with the C2-4 overlay. Next slide, please. Here you can see the empty site image in the left, and then on the right you can see the schematic rendering of the building. It is an 8-story elevator building with 26 affordable 1- and 2-bedroom units. It has a ground floor retail space. This is a busy area of Pitkin Avenue, but most likely it will be 2 neighborhood retail tenants in the ground floor commercial space. It has a landscape rear yard accessible to all tenants with a rec room, bicycle parking and common laundry at the terrace on the roof with a shared outdoor terrace space. Next slide, please. Here you can see the site plan of the building with the setback at the 7th floor and the landscaped rear yard. Next slide, please. Here you can see the ground floor on the left-hand image with the rec space and then the retail space, elevator, stairs, and trash room. The right slide shows you typical floor plan with 2 one-bedroom and 2 two-bedroom units. Next slide, please. All right, here we have our third site, which is 943 Dumont Avenue, 5,400 square foot corner site in an R5 zoning district, so still relatively low zoning. Next slide, please. This is a schematic rendering of the building. On the right, it shows the masonry facade, slightly raised ground floor for privacy, setback along one of the avenues, and an open circulating central stair. It is 6 3-bedroom units that are 3-bedroom, 2 baths. Next slide, please. As for all the buildings, landscaped shared yard with some raised beds, some trees, and some hardscaped area. And then in this particular site, we have continuous planting strips along the both streets. And then on the right, you can see the typical unit layouts with the open circulating stair in the middle with glass to the exterior, defining a sort of semi-private safe space for circulation. And then the units which have open living room and kitchen on the corner, and then 3 bedrooms, 2 baths in each unit. Next slide, please. This is our last site, 743 Blake Avenue, 4,000 square foot site in a slightly higher R6 zoning district, again, a corner lot. Next slide, please. You can see the empty lot there on the left in the picture and a rendering of the building. It is similar to the last. It's a 4-story building with 8 affordable 3-bedroom, 2-bath family units with a central walk upstairs. Next slide, please. You can see the site plan here. The building is set back to match the adjacent building, and then it has a rear or side yard that is shared by the tenants, that is landscaped and paved and has trees. And on the right, you can see the typical unit layout similar to the last. Next slide, please.
Or this is an FTA, an existing station. It's like right over the station.
Ismini?
Is there any floor area?
I think Ismini's on mute again.
Thank you. Thank you for unmuting me. Thank you, Chairwoman and council members and staff for allowing us to present. So I wanted to lay out for the council, as we have done with Councilman Barron and Councilwoman Nurse, the affordability that we are working to achieve through this project. And I would just really comment on it's been a struggle. It's really hard to get to the deep affordabilities that the neighborhood deserves and the council people are requesting, and that we are mission driven and would prefer also. I also want to mention that these income levels and the unit mixes are actually an earlier draft that did not change, that we were not able to change on the slide in the presentation prior to presenting, but we have presented a different mix to the council members whose district they're in, and I will go over it for the record. We just did not have the ability to do that prior to the hearing. The second thing is that in the course of the ULURP action over the last several months, as with every spring, the HUD area median incomes are issued sometime between late March and late April of each year. And so the 2022 AMIs recently were issued. And I believe when that happens, the city housing department requires us to underwrite to them. They are not reflected here. But for the record, they are very high. In fact, the AMIs increased for a family of four from 119,400 to 133,400. And so I don't want to speak for Councilwoman Nurse or Councilman Barron, but we as Manny and Cypress Hills are extremely concerned at the jump in the median income citywide that will then kind of reflect underwriting, but we can probably say 100% not reflect the reality of the income levels in Community Board 5 and District 37 and District 42. So what we are, we have changed the mix at the request of Councilman Barron and Councilwoman Nurse to eliminate all of the 70% AMI units. So there will be no 70% AMI units. And we worked very hard to eliminate all of the 60% units at the request of Councilman Barron. We are unable to do that within the parameters of the current term sheets and the underwriting, but we were able to reduce the 60% units from 7 to 4. And Councilman Barron wanted no 60% units in his district. And so the 4 60% units are in fact in the 2 buildings that are in Councilwoman Nurse's district. So that those 14 units at 60 and 70% AMI have been reduced to 4 at 60, eliminating the others. In order to do that and still be able to finance the program, we made some additional changes. One is that there are no units actually at 30% AMI. However, there are 8 project-based vouchers in the project. And what that means is that for the 8 project-based vouchers, people can be at a fixed income, they can be at $1, they can be, so the way we countered the removal of the 30% AMI units to accommodate the underwriting was by applying the project-based Section 8 vouchers, which are for extremely low income people, to this development. And they are set aside in 2 buildings, 743 Blake and 943 Dumont. 5 at 743 Blake and 3 at 943 Dumont. Then what you see at the request again of the council people is that the 40 and 50% unit numbers change, and we now have 10 units at 40% AMI and 24 units at 50% AMI. And so the spread is different, but in general, and I apologize for not having the visual for you, but basically eliminating the 70%, substituting the 30% with project-based vouchers, reducing the number of 60%, and then really kind of putting, the units are in a smaller section of AMI. And we'll be working with the city to find a way to maintain, if you go to the next slide, to maintain these rents. So these rents are 30% of the 2021 incomes you saw on the previous page. So you could imagine if the income now is at 133,000 and then changes by family size, you could imagine that the rents are higher. So we are actually working with the council people and the city right now to try to maintain these rents. And so then the affordabilities that I just talked about in the previous with the previous slide as reference, would really be still making units available to income levels that reflect District 37 and District 42. So I know that's a lot. You probably have questions, but and I apologize again for not having the visual. But we can circulate that to the council after the hearing also. So that's the story on the affordability, income levels, and family sizes. If you go back to the previous slide, I just want to mention one other thing. We're also really kind of intent on sizing the units to meet the needs of the families in residence in District 37 and 42. And so what you can see here is that you have an inordinate number of 2 and 3 bedroom units. So you have 13 one bedrooms, 17 2 bedrooms, and 16 3 bedroom units to comprise the 46. No studio apartments. So we're very proud of the fact that we are able to provide this mix with a real majority of the units in the 2 and 3 bedroom category. I think if you go to skip to the next slide and then the next one, yeah, so this is just really presenting the timeline that you're aware of today. We're here with you, and we are hoping that once ULURP is completed, hopefully positively, then we will actually be working to close on the construction loan by the end of 2022, start construction in early 2023, and have the units available for occupancy sometime in late 2020 or mid 2024, a year to a year and a half later. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Council, are there any council members with questions?
If there are any council members with questions, please raise your hand now. Use the raise hand button rather. I see no council member questions on this item.
All right, I just have 2 quick questions for the panel. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. I wanted to know what kind of businesses are being considered for the retail space shared in your presentation.
Great. I think, so I'll answer. I think Meredith's on mute. So we have not, so basically we have not decided, and we're working, both the borough president, the council folks, and of course ourselves are extremely interested in making sure that it's businesses that respond to the needs of the community and activate that block in a really positive way. And the rents will be affordable for the commercial spaces to allow for small businesses to be able to move in there and survive and thrive. So, but it has not been determined yet, given that it's kind of a few years out.
The borough president made a recommendation for a daycare center in the retail space. Have you all considered that and had a conversation about that?
Yes, we've absolutely had a conversation about it, and we're looking into it. The childcare, I'm not sure it'll work, given that it seems big, but it's not that big, and there's a lot of rules related to childcare, but we are absolutely looking at it. And there's a sister project to this at 3285 Fulton that the council had voted on last week. And that one is actually has affordable housing and childcare. Now, it's not really quite, childcare is so important, like location matters with childcare when you're dropping your kids off, right? So, you know, having something at 3285 doesn't necessarily work for, you know, for folks at Pitkin. But I think we're absolutely looking into it to see if we can, or to even consider an expansion. Cypress Hills has a phenomenal a home-based childcare center with huge amount of training and support for the providers, and so that could be something that we could actually place in the space. That would be a compromise between a place-based childcare center and expanding childcare services.
Thank you so much. Being that there are no more council member questions, this panel is excused. I wanted to ask council if there were any members of the public wishing to testify.
There are no members of the public signed up to testify for this item.
Thank you. Seeing no other members of the public who wish to testify on LU 52, the Sutter Place NCP public hearing on this item is now closed.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much.
Appreciate you all. That concludes today's business. I want to remind everyone that if you have written testimony on today's items, you may submit it at landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number or the project name in the subject heading. I would like to thank all the applicants, members of the public, my colleagues, the subcommittee, council, land use staff, and Sergeant at Arms for participating in today's hearing. This meeting is now hereby